Cheik, thanks very much for joining us, mate. Taken a while to get you because we felt like we needed to earn the right to ask you. Like being obviously the boss. Like we couldn't come in straight away and be like...
No, I get it, mate, but I'm honoured, to be honest. I heard there's a list of very, very famous people who've been on here, so hopefully I will add to that for you.
Thank you, mate. We've had a few. We've had some good guests.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this one, so thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Mate, we'll get into it. But so in your opinion, straight away, would love to know, like, who do you see as the best coach in the world currently? And that could be rugby union, of course, but obviously I know that you have a big passion for NRL as well, of course, rugby league.
Yeah, that's tricky because, mate, I've always seen the coaching thing as, well, in my eyes, has been about the right person for the right team at the right time. It's sort of three-dimensional. So one coach could do a brilliant job in one place, and then perhaps that same coach, when he goes to another place, might struggle a little bit because what you need to be in that environment is not what your skill set is. So when you ask me that question, and I go to the people with longevity, you know, and you look, if I go to NRL, you've got Craig Bellamy from Melbourne Storm, who's been nearly 20 years there, and they would have been finalists, top 4, probably 18 or 17 of those, you know, Trent Robinson, Wayne Bennett, those guys who have had long stints and have been able to create success over long periods of time. And then if you flick over to rugby, you really can't go past, you know, a coach who's led his country to 2 World Cups. You know, it's pretty hard to go past. That's 8 years worth of continuity and success. And people can say, oh yeah, he's got a great playing pool and all that, but you've still got to make those players play better and stay at that consistent level. And so, you know, Erasmus has been able to acquire such consistency with his team, and he's building like a bit of a monolith there. You know, they're even looking harder to stop, and along the way they've created success by winning rugby championships several times. They've had a lot of success on November tours when they've come up to the north, and then as well they've been able to have success in 2 World Cups. You can't go past that. Do
you think the best coaches have sort of like external like mentors, or do they pick stuff from other coaches that they bounce ideas off? Or Ferguson, for instance, Alex Ferguson, of course, he used to change his assistant coaches sort of every 2-3 years. So although he might have the same philosophy, these guys are coming in with fresh ideas. Yeah. But how do you, as a coach, maintain that sort of ahead of the curve, I guess?
I think you've got to look at a range of different things, whether it's from sport or not from sport, from different coaches. There's a lot of, I'd say behind the scenes, people should know that coaches from different sports, there's a lot of those connector groups or leadership groups where you'd be in with 5 or 6 different coaches or different people, leaders in their area from different fields. I'm currently in one with, you know, different people from AFL, from Formula One, from rugby league, from football, so from basketball, NBA. So you can get a cross reference of your ideas with other coaches and hear their ideas, and not necessarily take them and say, okay, I'm going to use that, but you take it, put it through the filter for your team or from a rugby perspective, and try, or what you need, and then try and, you know, adapt that. And the other thing is, you know, psychology. There's lots of different avenues that you can keep updating and evolving what you want to do and your approach to the game. And then your assistant coaches are extremely important because they become your filter. Like, I remember when I'd coached at Leinster, I was relatively raw, right? I didn't know a whole lot about, you know, professional coaching or what it meant to be at that level, and grew in that time. When I went back to, we'd won European Cup, we won the domestic league, and then when I went back to Super Rugby to coach at Waratahs, I was scared. Like, is my footy going to work here? Like, is that, so I wanted someone, when it came to choosing assistant coaches, I chose Daryl Gibson, who'd been at Crusaders, who I knew were established, successful teams. So I say, I'll bring my ideas, filter them through Daryl, see what he, you know, and try and get the right blend for the team that happens. So assistant coaches are so important in helping you filter ideas, especially, mate, from the age thing. So every year that goes past, I get further away from having played the game. So I like to have some younger coaches who are who've been closer to playing the game, so that it can be more realistic for you. You know, I haven't been able to jump into training yet at Leicester. Right, I'm usually very good at number 10 in my in my team. So even though they're trying to kick me out all the time, I haven't been able to jump in there yet. But you understand, like when I started coaching at Leinster, I was jumping in and doing full contact training with them because I was young enough, right? And as you get further away, you forget about what that feels like. So you need people who can keep you updated into what's actually going on out there.
You've had a couple of carries though, Cheik. You did catch the boys unaware. Colin, I don't know if you were back for this point.
I wasn't, no.
But Cheik, we were doing a bit of defence upstairs, and Cheik was talking about what he wants and this, and we're sort of in the circle, and then he got the two halfbacks out, JVP and Tommy Whiteley. And I was still rehabbing at the time, so I was watching, and then he sort of got them. He's like, right, and I want you to carry. And he suddenly set off, mate, and he came off the back fence and gave him a bit of a carry. So you still sort of you still got it, mate.
Mate, that wasn't planned at all. But when I saw the two little fellas turn up, I thought I'm a chance here. So I went straight at it. But then the next time I came up there, I pulled out a card. I said, "There's been some criticism that I ran at the little fellas. So you big blokes come up here, right?" And then I passed the ball to D.
Yeah, he
said, "Off you go, son. Good luck to you."
That's wisdom. Right. That is wisdom.
Yeah. And then I copped flack from that, and then I thought, okay, I better aim up, And Crackers and I think it was Kyle. They put me away. I'm still aching from the hit.
Bag of peas. When you come against these top coaches, does that excite you more against going almost like do you treat that as a head-to-head between you and him and tactically, or do you still keep it very much, okay, it's my team versus him, or does that must excite you a little bit, that head-to-head?
I think it's the challenge of being able to outmaneuver. There's different types of manoeuvring, right? Rusty would be one of the kings of trying to outmaneuver you off the field as well, media, YouTube, loves a YouTube line as well, but he uses it to influence the game, influence you, influence the mentality that you bring. You meet coaches then, say offline, post-match in a dressing room, or once the battle's sort of over, it's a very different vibe, So there is that, and I think you learn a lot too coming up against, coaches who have got different strategies that you might have, or a different mentality to coaching, and then you get to spend a bit of time. We spent when I was coaching Argentina and there was COVID was happening, we spent 2 weeks in quarantine in the Gold Coast with South Africa, and we stayed in Sanctuary Cove, which had everything there. I'm sure you guys will stay there, the fields. And so we just had the whole resort to ourselves. We had barbecues, socialising. It was great. And we got to know some of the South African players. And I heard a little bit around the background of the mindset, I wasn't always probing for questions. What could I find out so I could attack it there from behind, But I think it is good. It's good fun to get in there and challenge yourself against the different coaches and different teams. That's part of the battle,
Do you have core... Because obviously you talk about changing assistant coaches, and you've coached for a long time. Do you have core principles that you've kept from day one of your coaching career through to now? Not so much tactically, but off the field or with teams, and the mentality of teams that you keep, and then other people might drive the tactics. If you see what I mean.
But I think I've got some fundamental principles. You guys would have felt, I think, a few of them already being inside of the team environment about what's important in the game. There's certain things that I feel they're non-negotiables if you're going to be successful on the field. And then you can build different atmospheres for different teams off the field. I think it depends what you need. If a team needs to start to believe in itself more. I've traditionally been in turnarounds more often than not, probably suits my personality a little bit more, So what I try to give to the team is what they need at that time, and then evolve through. So if you look at Leinster, I started off with a team that needed to be turned around. And then 5 years later, I could have stayed for sure. The club wanted me to stay, but I had to make a decision that went, okay, are you going to change, Cheik? Because this team needs something different to what you've been bringing over these last few years. You got them, helped them get to that stage. Obviously, they got themselves there, but you've helped them with that attitude you bring. Now, you've either got to change, evolve a little bit that way to a sort of Joe Schmidt character, like a little bit more on detail, a little bit more technical, because they were running themselves mentally at that stage with the way they were, the senior leadership they had there. Or do you want to stay how you are for the moment, And I think at that time I thought, I'll take a break, step back, stay how I am. So I could have for all I could have still been there. You never know, if you make a different decision and you decide you want to go a certain way. But I love that challenge of, I wouldn't say being the underdog. I don't think that's it. I don't know, the turning things around, or I think comes from how you're brought up. Prove a point, prove someone wrong, chip on your shoulder. Like I've got probably a couple of chips on mine on both sides. Not for any reason, just because that's what gives you that drive, the motivation to do it, So I think the answer to your question is I've got fundamental beliefs. I think as I got older, I've changed as well a little bit now. I've been able to mix and match a little bit more, but I wouldn't compromise on what I think are the fundamentals of the game, that are important.
And with you say about being an underdog and almost going into places, turning them around, you obviously enjoy that part of the game. And when you take a job, are you quite selective in? I mean, obviously being the world-class coach that you are and you have the knowledge you have, like probably a lot of teams want you, but are you able to go, actually, this suits my personality, this suits what I'm about, this has potential to turn around? Like, you're not coaching, all respect, like the fourth team, you know what I mean? Like you get to pick a job and go, actually, I'm going to enjoy this job and I'm going to make a difference here.
Man, I think that one of the great quandaries for people when this game's gone professional is like, is it a job or is it your passion, right? So for me, and it can be both, right? For me, I never, if you look at, I played the game from the amateur era through the when professionalism started. And yes, I played here in Europe when it wasn't professional, but there was, brown paper bags sitting on the table and all that type of stuff in France, so it was okay. I hope I'm not going to get in trouble, World Rugby retrospectively. But I made the choice not to go down that professional road when it came in the mid-90s because I was working, I was enjoying working, and I liked that contradiction, which led to me getting involved in my business, which allowed me to have an independence in thought when it came to coaching. I did it because I wanted to do it. I could make decisions that could be against what I'm getting from the club, understanding the consequences. These guys might give me the bullet here. Like the amount of fights I had at Leinster when I started off, arguments with the boss there, and like we still worked it out good. But yeah, I think Norman person would have booted me out probably, but I felt that that's what they needed at the time. And I was desperate to be successful for them because I had no right to get that job. I didn't have the CV to get that job. They took a punt on me big time, and I wanted to make sure that I paid them back. But I don't want to be, I want to make decisions without compromising myself. So I think what's been more important for me along that road is having an independent life, financially, I suppose, and also that balance in life that I've had from having business, always being involved in something like that. And I won't say I've been perfect. I've compromised a couple of times, and both times that's happened, it's failed miserably, right? So that's taught me, don't compromise ever. And you can't just do whatever you want. There's always, you got to understand where you sit in the company chain, right? But understand that you'll make the right decisions for the team all the time, what you believe are the right decisions for the team. And if someone higher up thinks that's not the right thing, there's consequences to be met, and I'm happy to accept that.
Do you feel like on the back of that, Cheik, that you can be more, I suppose, pioneering in your coaching, a bit more ambitious? Not ambitious, not the right word. I suppose bolder in how you want to play, because you're kind of going, well, actually, like you say there, like you're prepared to go there because you've got other avenues that you can do. So therefore, I'm going to coach this way, and I want it to be like this, and I'm going to prepare to go that, rather than coach a little bit safe. You're prepared to go, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm going after, and I'm going to be a bit pioneering in it.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm not coaching to pay my mortgage, put it that way. You know what I mean? But that's irrelevant too, Ben, because I don't want to be reckless, because I've got all you guys that I'm looking after. That like your not careers, your opportunities to win trophies, your opportunities to play a high level are dependent on what I bring, right, as well as a coach. So what I have to do is understand what are the risks that are worth taking. Always making risk assessments, or this is a direction we're going to go, and I truly believe that this is the right thing to do, and that will give you I suppose, the resilience or the bounce back when things don't go right early on, because things often don't go right straight away. You got to fight through a lot of stuff to get to where you want to go. But if you've got the inner belief that that's what I'm doing, I'm not compromised, I'm not going to take that heat from anybody else, then I believe that you would feel that as a player in the team, or you'd feel like, oh, this guy really believes that that's the right way to go. I'm following him. Because trust inside of the team is like the most important thing, and I've got to show my players that they should trust me, because I'm going to do exactly what I think is right. It may not be right in the end, but I'll be doing everything to make sure that that end goal, that outcome I want, comes true.
Just with just picking up from the first question though, with the best coach, who do you think will be the best coach in sort of 10 years' time, and who do you think will be in the 20 years' time? So I suppose that's players that you've coached that you think will go on to have great coaching careers.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. If I look at, it's interesting. So, I've just sort of come from that environment. You know, Felipe, when I went to Argentina, they always had Felipe Contempomi in mind to come and take over as the coach after the World Cup. And they knew I had a working relationship with him from when he was a player at Leinster. And so he's come in now, and he'd be doing things probably a little bit differently, and he's getting some good results straight away. So, you know, can he take that through with that longevity in 10 years' time? I think if I go, they're recently finished players who have got experience. If I look at that players per se, I think there's a combination of things that you got to look at. So say if I looked at yourself, right, because we've had some talks about footy, really good IQ and mind on the game, understands how things play out before they happen, which is usually a good precursor for coaching. Now, you've got to then decide if you've got the other part of the personality of coaching, which is being a little bit more, you've got to give a lot, you know, you've got to give up, you've got to give a lot, you've got to understand that some players won't see it the way you see it, right? That's just what it is, and that you've got to then work around that to install that in a player in another way. So if I was looking at players, well, do I know the guys from Leicester well enough now? If I looked at players from here, yeah, I'd say that you could step into coaching quite easily. Even Coley, you know, you might have a different...
Even Coley. Yeah, they're never a good start to.
Mate,
yeah.
Front rowers, they're dominating the forefront of the coaching panel. Now, I think when I hear you talk about the points that you make about footy or the scrum or whatever it might be, they're well thought out. They come from having good experience as well. What the trick then is about being able to articulate that to players. And when you don't get it the first time, okay, I've got to work around another way to get it this time. Because often the hard thing for high-level players is to understand, hey, mate, how can you not get that? Like, it's obvious. But it does, how people learn and how people understand messages, it's really quite different. You know, I've got a story of a player. I'm not going to mention the player's name. He's not here, and he's a French guy, and good player. Played international footy, and that training, I was going, this guy, he's no good. Whenever I put the drills out or the cones out, he's going, this guy got no idea, you know. And how can he be such a good player? I kept working around it, and then finally, you know, this is stupid. It really taught me a lesson. A few months later, I said to him, mate, what's the story? Why can't you get this stuff? He said, I haven't wanted to say anything. I'm colourblind. Can't see the colour of the cones.
Oh, no.
Well, it's that simple, mate, sometimes.
Mad.
Asking questions.
Yeah.
Finding out about what your players are thinking. Because every time I get up and stand in front of you fellas, for example, and I'm talking, I'm looking for whose eyes down, who's losing interest, how do I then tack and get that guy to come and listen into what I'm talking about? Or do I have to point to him direct? Because everyone will interpret your message differently. You know, it'll come in blocks. Like there'll be a block of guys that see it this way, a block of guys that see it that way, but you've got to try to get everyone to see that message in the same way, or deliver several messages in the same parole that will mean that those guys will understand what you're trying to get to.
Just on, sorry.
Yeah, no, go.
But like, is that something that comes naturally to you? The ability to communicate to people, and with different, as you get different people in squads. I mean, no, we're all sort of an age group and male, that kind of stuff, but different social backgrounds. You find that in different ways of learning. Have you, does that naturally come to you, or have you spent time learning it? And secondly, have you found it evolve again from 20 years ago? Things were quite black and white in regards to coaching, whereas now you obviously get a lot of whatever the Gen Zers and stuff with short attention spans. Have you found that you've had to find different ways and different motivations and different ways of communicating to younger people of today?
I think that the answer to your question is both. I've had it naturally, like I was naturally like that. I think professional rugby sort of made me like that. I'll tell you why, because I played at a club called Ramwick where we had a lot of, I think at one stage I would have been the only player who'd never played international footy in the team. So we had a lot of high level players. Super Rugby came, all those players took off. So I was left with the club team at a different level of, and I'm all of a sudden the coach on the field, you know. So, because our coach, the great Jeff Sale, he was very good at going to light the barbie and get the wine and the beer, but there wasn't much else happening there.
Not much organisation
Not
going
much
on.
technically happening right there. Right? So, but we loved him all the same, you know. So, so there was a lot. I had to develop that early on, you know, from a point of view of understanding. And then I think I learned that mainly, Coley, from myself, listening to different messages from coaches and going, I'm maybe not seeing eye to eye with that message, and then going to speak to that coach and say, well, I didn't think that's what you meant, you know, but it was much more like, just do this, mate, shut up and come along for the ride, you know. So, yes, definitely I've thought about that. Having played the game in different countries as well and having to speak those languages, I think has challenged me to think about that more. And as I've got into coaching more, I would try and go and understand how each nation, or like I've coached in a lot of different countries, how their schooling system would be. Because at the end of the day, that's how you guys grow up learning, you know, that the English schooling system is very different to the French, very different to the Aussie. And that's how, you know, here, you don't see the English coaches down by the sideline screaming at the players, do you?
No.
No. In France, that's the go. They're all down there screaming and yelling at the players. It'll track back to now, especially since I've been living in France recently and I've had my kids at school there. That was one place I wasn't ready for when I went to Stade Francais. That was all a bit of a last minute thing. I'd left Leinster, I moved to Paris to have some time off. I wasn't going to coach. We had twins coming, I already had a little one on the ground already, so we thought we'll take a year off. And then they got rid of their coach, and it was in fact the Argentinian players who played at Stade through Felipe. They came to me and said, come coach a team. So I just did it, but I did none of the background that I needed to do to understand the culture, understand the learning process of those players. Thought, okay, this fits, went there, and no, you've got to do that work. You've got to understand how you can then get your message across, because that is the coaching business. That's like, I've got an idea, but I've got to make that idea sit in your mind, and how you'll take it in might be very different to how Ben takes it in, you know.
So when you obviously then turn up, Cheik, that first day, like what are you trying to install on that first meeting? What do you want to do on that first session? Because like you say, the Stade obviously like thrown into the deep end a little bit, and then Leinster obviously had time. Leicester was a little bit last minute as well, but obviously you got a huge amount of experience, vast experience, having experienced.
Were you there the first day?
I was, yeah.
What did you think?
Well, I very much liked it. For listeners that didn't know, like, Cheik, you didn't put on the shirt to start with because you felt like you needed to earn the right to put on the strip, which I actually, you know, it's not old school, but I just liked it, you know? Like, it's not, right, I'm in and this is what it is. I'm gonna prove to you, I'm going to earn the right to wear this shirt. I'm going to earn, because you obviously got instant respect in the room, but it kind of like, actually, I'm going to show you and I'll put it on when I'm ready, once I've sort of shown it to you. And obviously you did the video bits and the motivation bits about where we're heading, how we want to get there, you know, treating pre-season and how you should treat it. And yeah, like, but I suppose that's a skill, isn't it? But is that a skill you learn through your business career or through rugby, just knowing how to sort of, because I suppose it's not a sales pitch, but it is almost, because you've got to get everyone in the room believing in your word day one.
Well, I want you to know who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And I figured that, I've been able to maybe polish that up a little bit, but at its core, it's who I am. Like that, this is me. Like this is the personality you're going to get. and I want you to know that, and I'm on your team. You know, I think that thing about the shirt, that's real. That's not a sales pitch. Like when I went from, I've been coaching Australia, and then I had a little run in league. Then Mario called me up and said, "Come and help us out with Argentina." And I literally had to say to the lads, "Mate, this is going to take me about a week before I can get in all the kit." Apart from the fact that it was like Smurf blue, right? So it didn't really suit my skin colour, right? But it was, and they were going, "Carl," and I said, "No, it's going to take me time." So every day I come down with a little bit of new kit on, you know, until I got into the level. And I think that I've never ever, for example, in my time as a coach or a player, like organised a deal to go somewhere else when I was in another deal. You understand?
Yeah.
So I feel like I've got to give all of myself to that, do a good job, and if then I merit the opportunity to go and do something else with another team, or another team would like me to be with them, then yeah, I can do that. But I don't feel like I can split because I would say I've had several conversations with Leicester over the years at different times, and I'd always been doing something else. And Leicester's a club that had always intrigued me and interested me because of, I suppose, meeting them several times with Leinster. And I think when I first got there, Leinster, like they had a bit of post-traumatic stress, you know, from an encounter they had, I think, in the early 2000s at Lansdowne Road, where they got pumped by Leicester in a European game. So we drew them early on in some round matches, and I saw the vibe. And then when we brought Leo Cullen and Shane Jennings back to Leinster, I saw a bit about obviously what the club does here, because I saw it inside those two players, and I saw the difference that those two players then made to Leinster. Huge difference, right? And obviously Leo's still making that difference now.
Yeah.
You know, so, and a lot of that's come from, I suppose, what they learned when they played here. So I'd always been intrigued by that club with big history and that sort of, I suppose, reputation that they had. You know, so. I just think that the timing was never right in that scenario. So when it came up the timing this time, I thought, okay, this timing works. I feel like I can give myself proper for this, you know, considering what's happened to them and what the scenario was. This is the situation. Let's have a go at it.
The M1's going to be busy on the 16th of April, 2025. Do you know why?
Well, because it's our first live show.
Correct. And we're going to be in London.
And everyone will be heading to London.
At the Clapham Grand. If you want your tickets at 10 a.m. on Thursday, you'll have to use the code THB to get early access.
And where is the link?
In the bio on all our social media pages.
We very much look forward to seeing you there. So when obviously absolute all in check, but then whenever you finish, like for Argentina, for instance, you obviously didn't have a little bit of a break, but Leinster and all these teams. What do you do once you've finished with a club or international team? Like, how do you sort of reset? What is those? Because you say you like to have a little bit of a break in between and reset, and you just said obviously before Stad you were looking to have a year off and kind of reset before, the job approached. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, they came to me.
They came to you, mate. Sorry. What do you do between those gaps?
Genuinely, when I got the Leinster position, I was just coming over. Alan Gaffney, who coached Leinster before, and Munster and Ireland, he coached me when I first started playing rugby. And he said to them, "You should have a look at this guy." I was coaching Randwick, you know, my club. And I thought, I'm just going over there for experience, the interview, you know. And then I went back to 1, 2, 3 times, you know. And then I got it. But I had no idea. I didn't know who many of the blokes were. I didn't have a clue what was going on. I sort of, right, let's go, you know. We just jumped in. And I suppose it balanced well, because like they were still working in porter cabins by the side of the field, you know. So from there, I think that I took that. I just needed to have a break to sort of work it out, because it was year after year after year. And then post the Stade Francais experience, I think I started saying, okay, I need to start working on myself a little bit more as well. In between, in any chances I get, learning more things, being able to handle different situations, different types of people. How do I manage upwards as well as downwards? Because all of a sudden you've gone from federation-based coaching, which is island system, to private owner who's coming down in the dressing room at half time saying, why aren't these blokes winning? Like, what's going on? And I think that was a very different experience for me all of a sudden, because normally I'd say, beat it, mate. Like, but then hang on a second, this guy's putting in 20 mil of his own hard earned. Well, he's allowed in the dressing room. You know, like that's how it works out. So I think starting to understand that, and then a changing, I suppose, customer base, your players, you know, they're changing. All of a sudden professionalism was in, players were coming in as young players from professional from day one, not having made the transition. There was a different, you know, the stakes were getting higher, competitions were getting more important. So I started thinking about how I can invest in myself and what are the things that I need to improve on. I think if I look at the last post the 23 World Cup, I took some time, did some education. I put a focus on more around, I suppose, the emotional intelligence topic. You know, for me at this stage, that was something I thought, yeah, I could get into this a little bit more and see if there's something, how I can deliver my messaging. Obviously, having just been with a team where I was speaking in another language that's foreign to me, I felt like, how can I do that? I learnt a lot in that area about how to express myself in many different ways to try to connect with players. And I've started getting interested in that topic. And then post the 2019 World Cup, I did the same, did some different education, went to a different sport in going to league. Even, I know this, I always said, I'd never do bloody, those, you know, you see the ex-players and coaches on the TV talking about that. Okay, what are they carrying on about? I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and put myself in the slot and be uncomfortable there, because I never felt comfortable doing that. You know, even though I'd done it before, I always sort of just thought, well, you know, but I went and did it proper, and I started seeing, I actually know what's happening in the game. Like when you don't watch it and you're connected, you're disconnected. You're not with any of the teams. You're looking at it in a totally different way, and that went through those scenarios and tried to educate myself in different things, and then obviously put myself in the situation of coaching league as well, which was different again. So I think I've done an exec ed course at Stanford. That was a 6-week course I did it was brilliant, you know, 2 blocks of 3 weeks live in with 39 CEOs and founders of hot tech companies and the rugby coach, you know. So putting yourself in that environment was really awesome for me to learn how to become better to handle, you know, any situation that could come up. And there's still obviously more because things change. As you were talking about, Gen Z's coming in and how you deal with that. And I just think with that stuff, a lot's said about how do we manage how do you handle the new generation. But you've got to have a balance of not turning these things into a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because if you go, well, you've got to handle them with kid gloves or whatever it might be, whatever that might say. Well, if you do, it'll happen. If they don't know another way, they'll never look at another way. So maybe you can present another way that it's adapted a little bit to what that new age brings, but it's something that they go, oh, actually, I like that. I don't mind that idea. And that could have been things that in the old days we just took for granted, you know, but it's the same idea presented a little bit differently.
I still think those, like, it's like Gen Z, probably bag them a bit, but there's still the personalities of that existed 20, 30 years ago, or longer than that, and probably throughout history of humans. But it's just a question of sort of probably delving beneath the instant sort
That's
of...
it.
You know,
And the stereotyping that people put... Look around our dressing room, right? You're still going to have the bookworm, the crazy guy, the smoker. I don't know if anyone smokes anymore, right? The educated guy, the quiet guy, the guy who's out with the girls all the time. You know, the party guy. They're there. You know, the personalities are there, and they're the best dressing rooms to have. You know, you look around, you got a diverse group of people that have come together to join a team and go after one goal, which is rugby in a nutshell. You know what I mean? When you think about it like that, because it's also a contact sport, so you've got to put a little bit extra into it. And there is a very, very diverse group of people. If you're, you know, yesterday I would have had 8 or 9 guys come into the office to talk to me, right? all of them different personalities, all of them have, and guys you would know, if I mentioned them by name, I'm not going to, and you'd understand the personalities straight away as soon as I said their names, because that's who we are, you know. So even though people put, oh yeah, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen whatever, it's just a stereotype for some marketing thing. And yes, people learn a different way and they're educated a different way, and they'll take in messages, and there's different political correctness now and all of those things, which is fine, right? But at the end of the core, there's still the personalities that people have inside them.
Self and Coley, obviously business partners in this, right? And we had a lad called Archie who suddenly decided he wanted to go find himself travelling, didn't he? So he's gone off on 4 months. He basically asked to go for 4 months travelling, which of course we said yes. Oh. The right call, Cheik, and do we re-interview him when he comes back?
Yeah, you don't give him his job back straight away.
I agree.
You've got to
make him work for it, mate.
Make him work for it and sweat for it as well. Right? Don't just say yes straight away. But I think there's again, in that whole thing, is the trust element too. Like, it's how you act is what you get back. There's a credit system. I don't know how it works, and it's about being able to assess that credit system is when people are genuine in their efforts. If Archie's done a great job and gone out beyond and to do whatever. I don't know if he's sitting in the room now. He probably is.
No, he's not. No, he's gone.
He's travelling, mate. He's finding himself.
I think that giving people the room to do those things, and you know, but in the old days, you would have said, yeah, you've got to be at a company 30 years and then you've earned the badge and the gold watch, you know. But I think now it's more about actions than time. Quality, not quantity, right? This guy's a solid human. He's done good things for me, or he's worked hard for the business, and I'm going to give him that little bit of room. And then if the opportunity comes up to bring him back in or bring that person back in, why not?
What makes a good business partner, Cheik?
Well, someone who understands the business. We need to take notes here. Someone who understands the business, and also I believe someone who complements, in partnerships, complementary natures. You know, I've got my business partner, Catherine, right? She's from the fashion business, right? You can obviously see that she's going to have a set of skills that I do not, right? When it comes to that industry, right? So, but then there's some things you'll share and some things that you'll do very different. Very aligned, I think, mate, like any partnership and like any team, aligned really well. I think the successful teams and the successful businesses are aligned from the top down. Doesn't mean they can't have a blue, right? But they've got to have that argument about going to the same place, right? If you're having arguments about going to different places, that's a problem. But if you're aligned, then you've got a different way. I want to get there this way. I want to get there that way. You can deal with that, because at the end you'll find probably a better method by combining both of those ideas. But alignment is really fundamental inside of any type of partnership.
Just with that, do you have to, obviously you have a way of doing things and listening to other ideas. Do you sort of actively maybe park your ego in regards to and listen and not compromise, but come to that result, whether it's in business or rugby, or do you sort of, do you actively have to do that, or do you kind of go, we're doing it my way, I'm listening, but thanks very much. You know what I mean? That kind of like...
Well, I'm starting off with a very, very solid idea in my head of what I want to do, but with an open mind to having that changed, but then having real criteria as to why I would change. What has that person got to do to make me change my way? And if they can convince me, or they show me that logic, or that I go, yeah, actually this is the go, let's do it. And I feel like that's been a really good, early on through coaching and business, I was much more the other way. And I think you've almost got to be that way early on. You've got to fight through to get to where you want to go, and you've got to stand for something and get through on that methodology and earn your stripes, I suppose, or reputation or your honour that way. And then from there, you've got that fundamental base of what you believe in. It's good to be open, right, to understand how you can make that better, how you can add to that through the ideas of different people, and thinking, yeah, like I can incorporate that in who I am as well as a person, and bring that to the table. And that's something I think I've really improved on over this last maybe 10 years or so.
Cheik, do you enjoy conflict at times? Do you think like sometimes that actually gets a better solution in the end of it?
Yeah, mate, no doubt. I think that when people are passionate about what they believe in, you're much more likely to believe it yourself. You know, I think that shows that this person's genuine in what they're thinking. And aligned conflict for me should be a normal process in any type of the building of any team, because it's nearly impossible to have everyone on the same page from day one. You've got to battle and wrestle it out and fight it out. So you go, okay, yeah, I'm going to give a little bit here, get a little bit there. We'll build this, but we're all going on the same direction. And I think that's really fundamental. And I think having, well, you know, I love a blue, right? So if you get,
I like it. I don't mind it.
You know, I think it's about and speaking your mind sometimes. Sometimes you've got to get up and say, raise your voice and say, to make your point. But it's all about everyone having the clarity that where this aligned conflict we're having is getting us to the goal that we want to get to.
Say you come into Leicester and you don't, the coaches you haven't worked with before, or, you know, Argentina, that kind of stuff. The easy thing, I guess, for some, even players, is to not have the argument and just agree with what you're saying because, you know, we don't want to upset you. We want to play in the game, play in the team. We don't want to lose a contract, all that kind of stuff. Is that the element of trust and you putting yourself out there and going, I'll have, you know, I'm not going to think less of you having the argument. Come with me and I'd respect you more for the argument rather than just going along with what I'm saying and just, you know what I mean? Can you see through those people? Do you find as well, you've been around a lot of people and stuff, you can see through, not see through the people, but you know when people are sort of just agreeing with you, being a yes man, basically?
I want to give people the confidence to do that, you know. Mate, even now, like we're coming into our first selections for the team, I want guys coming to me giving me grief about it, right? I want them to believe in themselves. Say, why aren't I playing? Boss, I've got this, you've got to pick, you know, have that argument with me because maybe there's some things I'm not seeing, Kylie. And I've got to go back and double check and take a look at it. I feel like I'm quite detailed when I make that because there's such important decisions, but you want that. I want that. I want to have those, like I said, but we're on the same team. We're all together, you know what I mean? And I think that's something I've always been good at is, you know, being able to be hard or have an argument and then the next minute we're on the same, we're going together. You know, I think I'm able to change and flick in between my mentality once I trust someone, I know that person's on my team. You know, so I think inside of footy teams, that's pretty fundamental.
Do you have to make yourself less intimidating, Cheik, to have those arguments with players?
Yeah, no, not really. I think, probably. I think early on, often I would have that reputation maybe of, you know, like he's intimidating. I'm not going to go and talk to him. But I would see myself as a total opposite. I'd say I'm very open. So with that in mind, you do have to change a little bit because it doesn't matter how I see myself. It matters how that person who's coming to me sees me. That's the important thing. So I've got to make myself look to that person. I can come to Cheik and talk to him about this or, you know, comfortably, you know, voice my opinion without being intimidated. And you've got to flick and choose there because sometimes you want to be a little bit, not intimidating, but you want to be forceful. You want to make the point. In this game, that's sometimes how you make the point is by being that way and being very, when you believe in something, not being flexible on it so that everyone understands this is the direction we're going in. This is the way to go. And then sometimes you've got to open yourself up and flick in between so you can be that person that players will be able to come to when they need you.
Perception isn't always reality. And I was going to say, I felt like there was such a rivalry between England and Australia between 15 to 19, given obviously the World Cup and you doing the absolute job on us, and then we went toured to 16. But having never known you and only played against you and obviously walked past maybe in the corridor or seen you in the sheds, I definitely had a perception that you were a certain way, but actually being completely surprised that you're not. You are very personal and got all those attributes. But have you ever had a situation where maybe you come in with preperceptions, given that obviously self and Coley actually have played against you many times, and how do you kind of stop yourself from having them?
No, mate, I wouldn't have those because in the rugby environment, in our footy environment, because we might get beat by someone, yeah, but I respect the team and the players that can play at a certain level than to do that to you. You know, I suppose. If I look at it, I was saying it, you know, I was talking about some of you guys with a mate of mine the other day, saying, well, these guys probably hated me before, you know what I mean? Or but now I understand why they were a pain in my ass for 5 years, you know what I mean? But, beating us all the time and doing those things because they're good players. So, and they're good fellas as well. And you've got to respect that as the opposition coach. Doesn't mean you have to love it, right? They're your enemy if you're against them, at all costs. But I'm very much one of those who, once I cross the white line, I'm taking on my brother if he's on the other team. Right? That's it. It's war. And then when you get off that field, okay, I'll be with my team. And yes, I'm still your enemy, but I'll always have respect for the opponent because they're delivering the same things that you'd want to deliver on that day. They just were better at, when you lose, they were better than you on that day. And you've got to accept that, take it on the chin, and then get better on the next game so that you can prove that wrong.
Where does that mentality come from, Cheik? Like you say, like you go over the whitewash, you'll take on your brother. Like, how was that installed? How did you get that? How do you have that?
Oh, man, I think that comes from, obviously being ethnic kids growing up in Australia. We came from very working class backgrounds. I'm not going to say we were poor in the street, but very working class. Especially for me, from a footy point of view, grew up playing league. So when I crossed into rugby, it was a very different environment. And it come from me wanting to be respected. What else do you want as a kid growing up? And, you may have copped a bit of grief at school from the cool gang or whatever because you're not from that country, you come from a different country or whatever. You want to go, no, I want to be respected by people. By these kids who have all end up being my mates in the end, you know what I mean? Because that's how it goes, that's what you build. And I think that helped me to build wanting to be respected and then taking that challenge on. If that's what they call a chip on the shoulder, then that's what it is. But I think it's not that. It's about, I want to be respected, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be respected because deep down you want to respect those other people as well. Because that's how we connect, So I feel like it's come from there, and I've just kept that going. And the line on the field has always been almost a symbolic marker that says, well, I can go on there and bash this fella up, right? But then afterwards we can look each other in the eye and say, yeah, kudos, because that was tough, and that was a good challenge, which is what our game's about, The same with league, the contact sports. There's that fine line that you tread all the time, and I think that how you respect that line is really, really important. I feel like it's something I'd love to give the players that I coach, because when you can understand that mentality, it's very, as you can see, even inside of our team meetings often or whatever, there's a bit of laughter. And then there's a bit of axe that comes almost straight away. And I'm doing that because I want the boys to, I'm open to say, I want the boys to understand that mentality. I want us to be able to be chill 1 minute and then cross that white line and go out there and do the job we need to do and do it hard. That's how I think.
People with a chip can sometimes be a bit stubborn. Would you say you're stubborn or not?
I can be when I want to be. I suppose I've learned how to control that a little bit better over the years. And that's something I think when we talked about doing things outside of footy to make myself better, and in particular the emotional intelligence stuff, that is so. I want to have, and this is something that we talked about when I was with the Argies a lot, because what I don't like about, say, the commentary when Argentina's playing is, everyone says, they're emotional, and, well, yeah, they are emotional, but that's not all they've got, They've got plenty of other things, and I wanted them to learn how to control, not lose that emotion at all, keep it all, and then control it and channel it towards certain outcomes that you want in games. You had the great Tommy Lavanini play up here at Leicester, and he was always accused of it. But I love Lavanini because he's a guy who was open enough to take control of his emotions, understood that message, and is getting better and better now at doing that on the biggest stages, So he's able to use what he's got, the weapons he has, right, but then control it for the direction he wants to send it. And I feel like that's something that's really important to be able to do, is to have those emotions. Be stubborn. If you want to use that stubborn button and bring it so that you will not relent on something, well, yeah. Like in the office the other day, there was a scenario. I'm not going to go through it because they're all going to be listening. You have 1 million followers, obviously, right? So
we'll after this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's we'd had a few meetings about doing something, yeah, and that thing didn't get done. So then the next one of those meetings came up. I said, I'm not coming. no, you can't do that. You can't be there. They said, you can't do that. You can't. No, I'm not coming. If we're going to have a meeting and then talk about something, then not do it, well, what's the point in coming to the meeting? So I'm not coming. So I didn't come for the first 30. Then I came in. You know what I mean? I just wanted to prove a point, you know.
I like it.
But, well, yeah, I think that's what I like inside of the footy teams, that we can discuss stuff, train stuff, and then go and do stuff. Like, do that same stuff on the field, because that you can't get in that cycle of, oh yeah, let's say we do this, and then go out there, not do it, and come back on Monday and say, oh, let's do this, and then come back on Monday, let's do this. Like, it's ridiculous. That's on me as the coach. Like, I've got to make sure the environment is one where we're learning things, or we're understanding things. We go out there, we do those things. Do we do them well? Do we not do them well? That's something that we can improve, but we got to go and do them. That's something I've been very big with the coaches on. Like, no going around in circles. So do this, come back, don't do it. Do this, come back, don't do it. Do it. Whether the level we do it at, that's another thing. All right, but let's do it.
You've coached internationally, Australia and Argentina, and you're obviously passionate. We talked about competition and fighting your brother and stuff. Did you ever find there was more responsibility, because you're Australian, coaching your national side, and with Argentina, it was a detachment, but you obviously will embed yourself in it. But was coaching Australia hard or great because of the responsibility of being Australian and being a proud Australian compared to another international side? And
obviously first I coached Australia, which to me was like a true honour. Like, so when you say, was coaching Australia great? Yes, of course. And we had some great times and we had some bad times. So that goes with the territory, and that the opportunity to coach your national team. In fact, I was headed towards Argentina before that, right? I had discussions there before the 15 World Cup. And then at the last moment when Mackenzie left, of course I rang the Argies, and they were super understanding. They said, yeah, it's your country, you got to go, So that was huge, And yes, it is different when you coach, Kids are waking up, including mine, every morning after a test match, happy or sad off the back of what you do. And I took that responsibility on seriously. I think that's super important, especially in Australia where the game it's not the most popular of the games. I think that was so important for us to be trying to do the best for all the kids who are playing and the supporters of the game and the fans of the game. But when I went to Argentina, I almost felt more responsibility because I wasn't Argentinian. That they've handed me the keys to their national team, right? That's to give that to a foreign person. In my mind, that's a big deal, and I've got to look after that because I don't have the grounding in what makes that country, what's being brought up in that country, and those players all do. Well, that puts even more responsibility on me. I felt like, for example, definitely with the national team, I felt like I have to be speaking to them in their language, without a doubt. So, 60 episodes of Narcos on Netflix. There you go, straight away to get on it.
The lead actor was actually Brazilian, right? The bloke, I believe. Yeah, so he would have spoke Portuguese, so he'd have had to learn it as well.
Well, mate. And
don't fact check that, by the
way. And it was a great way of team building because obviously I was hopeless, right? And the players helped me a lot, and filled the gaps when I did, or I went into English, because they could all speak English, pretty much. But I wanted to do it that way because it's a national team. Can't be speaking before the game in another language to country when you're going out to play against England or against Australia or against New Zealand. So I've never thought about it because I never thought I'd be coaching another country, right? I genuinely never thought that would happen. So when it did come, I felt like I had to take responsibility, and we had an extremely emotional day together, I think, as a team in the lead up to the World Cup, where obviously I wasn't singing the anthem, so it's not my country, right? I don't feel like I owned the right, and they would, a lot of the boys would speak to me about it. You're going to sing the anthem? I said, it's not my country, mate. I don't have the right to sing it, And then I sat down with the boys one night. I asked them if it would be all right if we coaches sang it at the World Cup so that we could all come together. And it was like full on emotional. Yeah, it's amazing how those situations can get away from you. You think it's nice and easy and it's just a straight conversation, but you're feeling, a lot of attachment, pride, connection. And it was great. That year I had to learn 2 anthems because I learned the Lebanese national anthem in the World Cup Rugby League, which was a tricky one. I had to keep, I'm looking down on the camera with my eyes down there, but that's obviously my one from my heritage, and also the Argentinian one, which was so powerful and so beautiful to be able to sing that with those lads.
Great anthem. It was a very good anthem.
Yeah.
Cheik, with between 16 and 19, obviously there was a lot of rivalry between England and Australia, but there was also a lot of comparisons between yourself and Eddie. Like, what is the difference between you two as coaches, do you think?
Well, what's the difference between me and the great man?
2 foot,
And we actually
2 foot of height.
Yeah.
You guys are probably better placed.
Well, yeah, we are probably, yeah. But I'm just curious to know.
Obviously, we played footy together. And Eddie was old, he was older. He was more established in the team than me when I first came in.
Did he have good chat? There was renowned for giving. Did he generally dish it out a lot on the chat?
Ruthless.
Was he really?
Ruthless.
Good at it?
Yeah, ruthless. And when you're a young player coming in the team, you got it right. Everything was your fault. So I come into the team, I was clearly the youngest player in there, and so everything was my fault, right? And what are you even doing here, Cheik? Like, go back to second grade. What's wrong with you? So it was on, and then of course he was the commentator of the rugby league. We'd play rugby league touch, and he was the commentator. So he had a name for everyone, and sledging, out and out sledging. But mate, he was a tough player. He played well above his weight, and he played with attitude, and you liked having him on your team. He could say he was painful, but he was our painful guy. And he was a needle, a thorn in the side of the opposition always on game day, And I love that competitiveness that he had, because it made you want to play footy with him.
And then in terms of when you bring that then to a coaching, you sort of knew each other's personalities very well then. Yeah,
but there'd been a big gap, right? I'd never been coached by, he went into coaching straight after footy. I was still playing. So he was coaching second grade, I think, when I was playing first grade, maybe. So it started there, and then he went off to Super Rugby. So I never actually have been in the coaching environment with him at all. So we've had discussions about coaching often, and talk about things. And we've always kept a good relation as far as, communication's concerned. So when we come to match up, right, I knew that nothing changes, mate. He's going to sledge, I'm going to go at it, and that's the way it's going to be, and we'll have a bit of fun with it too, So, and I understand that he's been heavily criticised in many circles, but the job he did with England, recently I'm saying he has been, the job he did with England when he took you guys into that winning period there, that's pretty high quality. There was some pretty high quality footy being played, I think, at that time. 19 World Cup, we got pretty much outplayed by the way that England, took the game to us physically as well, carried the ball hard. You could just see some of Eddie's footprints in that. But I think even the 16 tour, they were great games. So you got to, if you're fair income and you want to watch, I didn't think we actually played that bad, but England played better. That's all there was to it, and went through you got to take that on the chin sometimes, hard as it was. And we actually, I didn't think we played too badly in that series, but he had just going, playing a certain style of footy, which you could tell was coming from his background, the way he'd coached in Australia, what he'd learnt there, and also some of the things I think he'd learnt from rugby league, like watching that game a lot, especially around forward play, the forward carrying power and the defensive stuff. So he's always been a thinker outside the box, You just don't want the box to be too big, because then the thinking can go too crazy. But he obviously was in his. I think I think that's the best winning record England's ever had. With Eddie in that slot.
I'm a big fan of him, and I say some of my fondest memories are being coached under him, playing under him, and that 16. I remember that first 20 minutes up in Brisbane. You were out in the college, and I remember thinking, what the pace Australia were playing at. I was thinking, what the fuck is going on here? Like, what is going?
Yeah,
and we ended up booting it long,
ridiculous.
And I think you tried to shift to an edge, and someone bobbled the ball. We picked up, and Jonathan Joseph scores right, and it almost like settled everyone down. Like
that's
God
where
for
the
that.
mental part of the game is huge, mate. Like we were playing great footy. One mistake turns around and it can change momentum. You know, the energy that comes. Like I'm getting the goosebumps thinking about it. I don't think I've ever been more worried in a game than in the 15 World Cup when Watson scored. Remember when Watson scored?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going, the energy that came inside the stadium, there's still 20 odd minutes to go and it wasn't that much. And I'm going, this is not good, because you could feel momentum changing and we needed something at that game to turn it around. And in the 16 games, individuals, I think, in your team, in that moment then when that happened, sort of, I can't remember it vividly, but off the back of that, certain individuals in your team then said, right, we're on the front foot here. You know, let's take this advantage and go with it. And then you took the rest of the series from there.
When momentum changes in a game, Cheik, and you're obviously watching it, how difficult is that to then influence it as a coach?
It's not impossible. But you've got to have, I think you've got to have some go-to players that can then make that one play, that one difference, that can do that one thing, and then say to everyone, follow me. You know, like I'm going to tell a story about. I'll tell you a story about Drico that I don't know if he's going to like me saying it or whatever, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's not that big a deal. I used to, when I went to, and it's involved Leicester as well. So when I went to Leinster, and I was there a couple of years already, and we drew Leicester in the European Cup pool games, right? And we were in the dressing room. I was doing this thing where I put a bit of paper up on the dressing room because they were still learning about how to communicate with each other. And so I put a thing on their locker and they come in and write up on game day, like, these are things I'm going to do for my boys, you know. And I'd like to see the players go around and look at what the other guys write up there, because, you know, I think putting it out there means, okay, there's an accountability to do this thing, you know. So it was happening, and, you know, guys would do it. We'd been a few weeks in and this was going on and whatever. We came to this game and the players were marking it up and doing different things on their own sheet, and you could see guys walking around reading other guys' stuff. But Drico left his blank, right? And I could see players were looking at it going, what's going on here? So we went out to warm up, come back in, still blank. Everyone else had done theirs, and then they're getting ready for the game, warming up. And then he was the captain. They get in the huddle because they were worried about Leicester, like there's no doubt about it, as I told you before. They get in the huddle. He calls them in the huddle. They get in the huddle, and he leaves the huddle, picks up the marker pen, and writes "Follow me" on the ball, on the white paper, and walks out. And they all just followed him. And they played awesome that day, you know. So we won that day in the RDS. But I just think that individuals can change games, momentum. They can change momentums of games. It's not that easy to strategically manufacture that from off the field. I think it's about having a word with an individual or getting some message to an individual player and say, this is what we need. But more often than not, that player knows that needs to happen. You know, that one big play. Or if you've got two or three of those that can make the difference in a team, you know. And, you know, with our team this year, I'm going to be looking for who those guys are. You know, who are the guys that can get out there and change a game, because there's going to be times where we're going to need to change the momentum of games, and I'm going to be looking for who those guys are.
That must have been unbelievably powerful for the team if he did that. And
yeah, he did.
Unbelievable.
You know, the stories for me, it was really vivid about who he was as a player. You know, because he was not only a brilliant player technically, but spiritually, like, he was a great player.
George Ford has been on here before, and he said the best coaches, in his opinion, change things there and then on a Saturday. Like, get to someone like him, for instance, because he's a driver, rather than wait for a Monday review. But does that come from experience, or how much do you have to take the emotion out of it? And they say get into those drivers. So you say Ant Watson scored then. Who would you have gone to, and how do you kind of keep your emotion in check so that it's a clear message that's being passed to them so they can actually action it?
On that night itself, I remember when that happened, and I remember what I did, because I went straight to Matt Giddo.
Yeah.
Right? That's what he was in the team to do. That's why we wanted him back so badly, about giving that sort of balance right in the middle of the field, you know, get that and be able to just, because when he spoke, they listened, right? So we had a few of those guys, you know, that could do that in that team. I think that 15 team, the way it sort of came, how we built that journey up into the World Cup, we weren't given much of a chance. We were in that, you know, bloody hard pool. And so we weren't given a whole heap of chance there. And we had a few guys that then sort of said, okay, this is the time. This is what we got to do. And that makes a difference, because when you're in with a guy like that, you would have known it because you would have played with guys like that. They go, this is a guy, like, okay, he's on, we're going. Then that makes a difference. So he's a player who could settle us down, get us going. He was really instrumental in that run in that year.
As you spoke about George Ford, you brought him up. I'll ask this question. 2023 World Cup opening game. We've had George on here before, and we talk about how almost for him it was a sort of signature game in the fact that as England players, we felt he almost took the game over with his drop goals, just go the control of the game, putting the pressure back on Argentina. What are your feelings, emotions from that game?
Yeah,
and your side of the, because we talk about the England side of the sort of...
Yeah, we've heard his side of it, yeah.
And we've heard our side of it and how it wasn't.
Well, I suppose if I looked at it from a reflection point of view, I was interested to know, was that a tactic, right? Or was that just him taking that game by the scruff of the neck? And built on the scenario. And obviously it worked, because I'll tell you why it worked. Because it rattled us. And it wasn't seen maybe in the play, because I didn't think we played that well that day. It was seen when our fella took a drop goal from about 45 metres out, which we never done. I'm saying, oh, no way we're taking a drop kick, you know what I mean? And it was a superb learning for us around that. And that's what you're going to do. If you're going to get schooled like that sometimes, you need to say, righto, we got aimed here, what are we going to do to come back and buy back? And I was so proud of the team that come back, because we got, like, the way the tables were going that way, we were almost expected to win that game. Like, no one was ever thinking that beforehand, right? And I don't think that suited our mentality at all. We tried to get around it and it didn't happen, but I felt like we recovered really well from that game, really well, because emotionally we could have gone. And I think it almost made our tournament, helped us get to, you know, I know we were on a gentler side of the draw, no doubt, but it helped us get ourselves moving. And it was in the game trying to maneuver against that. It's not about trying to stop him from kicking drop goals. No, it's about fixing the things that are leading to them getting the positions to do that, you know, to be on the front foot, to be able to do that, you know. And it's where you need someone who's something that can break the rhythm. We weren't able to break the rhythm that day.
There's a story that you met Beyonce. We're proper random here, one. Well, this is in there. But you had no idea who she was.
Mate, old days in the fashion business, we were getting invited to all types, especially the first brand we ever were able to work. So we've had a distribution business, right? Fashion distribution business. And the first brand we were able to pick up, I'm not sure like how we did it. We, you know, somehow talked our way into it, was a denim brand called Paper Denim and Cloth, which back in the day, this was early 2000s, it was, you know, I don't know how much it was. The luxury sort of denim thing was just starting, you know, when people were normally buying their Levi's for $50. Like these things were costing $200 or $400 or whatever it was. And we were sort of just working out what we were doing, but we were getting in, like, because they were high end, we were going to all these events and functions. I had all types of, I think I had dinner with the guy from Queen once, the curly hair guy, the guitarist, yeah, and Bob Geldof. I didn't have a clue, mate. Like I was just with these guys, and I was just like footy redneck and sitting in there going, yeah, no, I'm good here, I'm mixing it. But you met a lot of people, you didn't have a clue who they were, because I wasn't from that, I sort of didn't know, and I think it helped me a little bit. Even when I first worked in fashion, right, I got a job with a fashion designer. I came back from Europe playing footy, so and I spoke French and Italian. This fashion designer in Australia, Colette Dinigan, she wanted someone who spoke French and Italian. I just made the rest of the stuff up right on the CV. And I got the job, and I didn't have a clue who anyone was. But she was like the #1 fashion designer in Australia, like invited to the Paris runway shows. And I was going over there. I didn't have a clue who anyone was. I think they liked that. I think, yeah, because, you know, like in their industry, everyone's paying homage to the big guns, or in the music industry or whatever. But if you don't know, you don't know, you know. So she didn't know me.
Yeah,
did she? So it's fair. We're 50-50.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Come back to rugby. We're asking for a friend's question here.
Yeah.
We're curious to know, what do you want?
Depends which friend it is.
Yeah. We're asking for friends here. What do you want out of your senior players? What do you aim to get out of your senior players, and what do you want for them?
Yeah, I think first thing is like trust with those guys, that they trust I got their back, because they're all senior players. There's a lot of different types of senior players. There's senior players who are still in the box seat. There's senior players who have got competition from other guys inside of the squad. What I want them to do is help guide the team from their experience, because that's what they have as senior players, and deliver on field, because they've got the skills. That's why they're senior players. They've been playing for a long time at the top level, I imagine. So that's what and then to be hungry. Because when the senior players are hungry, the other players look up and go, oh, okay, these guys want it bad. Let's go with them. I think that's pretty simple. And then they're your on-field coaches, aren't they? I think more from a guiding point of view. And if you've got 3 or 4 on-field coaches, you're away. You don't have to do too much on game days.
Comes back to, I suppose, when you said you obviously Ghetto, like you kind of, because of the experience in all those, you kind of go back to them. They kind of then filter through.
Yeah, look, experience is an interesting thing, right? Because there's good experience and there's bad experience.
Yeah.
So it's not just about experience, about how you've used your experience and what mentality do you have now as a senior player. I know for me, as a junior player coming through, I was very different to how I was as a senior player, because I had a different set of roles and responsibilities. And if you enjoy that, some guys just want to get about their footy. So it's about, it's really a certain type of role modelling that comes to the rest of the guys in the team, because whether you like it or not, if you're a senior player in a team, guys are looking up to you, right? They're going, yeah, he's done a lot in the game. I'm gonna check out what he's doing, and he'll give me inspiration to do certain things. Is he a guy I'd go to ask for advice if I had a problem? Is he a guy that I can count on has got my back? Is he going to help me bring me through after training with some skill drills? Is he going to, whatever it is? And then it's a two-way street, because that younger player also gives you energy. You'll get something from that as a senior player as well. So I think it's just about balancing your personal ambitions, because all senior players still have personal ambitions, with the teams being able to balance that out a bit better, where, okay, I've got to help the team here as well as understand what my own personal ambitions are.
Cheik, you talked about good experiences and bad experiences.
Yeah.
What's been the hardest day as a coach for you in the last 10 years? And what did you learn from it?
Wow. There's been some tough ones, and there's been some great ones. I think, like losing the World Cup final, you're so close, and you probably never imagined you were going to ever be there. So, and what that in fact did for me was it had knock-on effects, because as I got to 18 or 19, when we had problems inside of Australian rugby, there was problems between me and the CEO, the Israel Folau thing. I made compromises then, because I was desperate to try to get that one step further instead of standing my ground. And then it cost me even more in the 19. So, yeah, I think losing the World Cup final was tough.
Have you, would you say you're over it? Again, asking for a friend.
Because those friends sometimes still think about it. And you're a bit further down the line than the friends that we know that sometimes comes into our head. Does it get easier?
Yeah.
Am I over it? Mate, I want to still try and get back and win the World Cup. What a dream. Who wouldn't want to do that? You guys played in the final, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't go so well. Yeah.
Hey?
Didn't go so well.
Yeah, but mate, well, there's two things, Carly, there. There's 20 other teams that weren't in it, or however many are in the World Cup, right? You got to win 7 of the top, 7 knockout games, more or less, against everyone who's trying. And you might think you've even got minnow teams in there, but they're trying to knock your block off, right? When they go, here's our big chance to make a name for ourselves. We're playing against England, or we're playing against New Zealand or France. They're coming at you with everything you got. So you've got to, and then you've got to orchestrate it and keep your momentum going. That's why it's called the World Cup. It's hard to win, right? So to get there, is one to get to that step is one thing, and it gives you experience to know, okay, when I get there the next time, what am I going to do to make sure that I get a better outcome?
I just think like having experienced the one that we lost, it comes to your mind still. Do you know what I mean? You still think about it, and it comes in the most randomest times. You just think, oh, what have I done that week differently? Or what if that? There's so many if, buts, and maybes, but it's kind of every year passes, but it still comes to your mind, you know?
Yeah, well, you perceive it in different ways, mate. Like, so if you consider you've got a chance to go back and do it again, well, you've got a different view on it than if you feel like you don't have that chance to do it again. I feel like once you don't have the chance to do it again, you just enjoy what you did. We got there. Like, what a run we had. Did people expect you to get there? We did this thing here. What about that game? I don't think you can go back and regret that because, like I said, mate, you're up pretty close to the top of the mountain there. If you're climbing Everest, you're at Camp 4, maybe, right? You just got to you just need the oxygen to get the next step, you know, and not many people have been up there. That's near the top of the world, you know. So I think each in their own environment, you know, for us this year, for example, there'll be guys who have never... there'll be guys in our squad who have never seen the Premiership trophy or European Cup trophy, let alone won it. So there's a mountain for everyone, you know, and I think that when you're still climbing it, you can think like that. What can I do better? But once you're done with that, you should just enjoy it because it's taken good efforts to get there.
Who's your like sounding board, Cheik? Who do you use to kind of decompress after tournaments or campaigns? Obviously this year, Premiership. Who do you sort of soundboard off?
Well, it depends what it's for, you know. If it's emotionally, well, it's my wife, you know. Like they have an uncanny knack, our partners, to give us equilibrate exactly our emotions. So if we come home like and how good am I going, etc., they can knock you down and just put you straight in the slot, right? yeah, wake up, come back here. And then when you're feeling down and times are bad, they can get you and lift you back up to where you are. That's the great thing about, well, I know with my wife that she can do that. And I think from an emotional point of view, she's the person. Not to mention the fact that she's a rugby expert, right, according to her. Right, she tells me all the players I should be picking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I remember one day she came home and said, it wasn't when I was in Europe in Australia, I think she said, yeah, that guy had a great game today. And she mentioned the guy's name. I said, no, darling, he wasn't playing today. He was off injured, you know. So, but you wouldn't get it. Like, she's like my number one supporter.
Yeah. And
on all fronts. And I've got a lot of good family who are supporting me, but she's like emotionally that person, you know, I think, who keeps me motivated. Like right now, you know, they're back there, I'm here, saying, no, you be there, do your best, do the best that you can, you know, don't worry about us. So when you've got that type of, it's easy to discuss and talk. When it comes to footy, I've got a few different people, and maybe not people that you would think it would be. You know, more people are going to give me a different point of view on things. People on the outside, people who may not know the scenarios that I'm going through, or if I'm looking for different experiences, you know, I'll bounce off guys that I've coached with before. Trent Robinson, Roosters coach. You know, there's different guys I've met along the way who I've either coached or played with that I, you know, might bounce some ideas off, or different sports. So yeah, I think I've got a good group of people. No mentoring or anything like that, but a good group of people that I can access. Yeah.
As a sports person, do you think you can be too good at losing? Do you know what I mean? As in,
not me. There's no chance I'm going to be too good at losing. That's
shit
for
question,
sure.
Steve. That's getting edited out.
Yeah. So never listen to anybody else, mate. Just
you said that at the start, right?
You want. Don't let the others influence you. You know, I think there's a lot of that now. You know, and it's, again, saw from young, everyone gets a medal, everyone gets a participation medal, all that type of stuff. That's definitely a thing now. But I think it comes down to who you are as a person. You're competitive. It's not for everyone. There's some people who are just more competitive than others. It's in our nature, and everyone should be respected for the personality they bring. So I know there's some people who say to me why are you carrying on like that when you lose a game? But they might be totally different personality type, totally different set of interests. And can't understand that, and that's fine, But this is what I'm about. This is what I love, You put things into it, and you're going to feel it. So I think being a good loser is, it's all a totally personal thing. I'm certainly not going to be able to be in that basket. No. It's not my game.
I think it's framed by your experience as well. Like, I remember we first came into the Leicester squad, we'd win every week almost, win championships and that kind of stuff, and it was like a relief. Losing was the worst thing in the world. Yeah. And winning was like a relief. It's just we'll go on to next week. Then went through a barren period and not being able to win a game. And it kind of like losing and see other people. It's still losing, still hurts. But then actually when you win a game, you realise, and international rugby is the same, you win a game, it's actually, you can celebrate it. It's all right to be, actually the effort's gone in, people have worked really hard. Winning a game in international rugby is tough, or winning a game in the Premiership is tough. It's not just like, but then again, you get back to the balance of, it's a game and we're on to the next one, and losing still hurts. So it's that balance, I think, of one thing I've learned in my career is actually, you can actually enjoy winning. You don't have to go over the top with it, but you know what I mean? But losing, it still hurts, but it's just how you frame it again with where you are in your career and all that kind of stuff.
Mate, I think that one of the hard things to understand is that winning is not a goal. It's a consequence of you achieving your goals. Right, so when you achieve the goals you set out in your team to do the things you do, the consequence is winning, which is then the thing we celebrate. And we, we're all fist pumping and carrying on, which is good, and I think that's because that's a great feeling. You look around, there'll be games as well that you've lost, and you can sit around the dressing room and you've got a different type of emotion that's going on with a connection with players who have shared that with you. It's just as valuable an experience, you know what I mean? Because you can feel that, like, these things happened to us on that day, or one person made a clanger and it cost us that game, because the margins can be so fine sometimes. So you've got to think that the goal of winning is actually pretty mediocre, because everyone wants to do it, right? I'm thinking more about achieving our goals of how we want to play the game, what we want to do inside the game, and then we know that winning will be a consequence.
2015, obviously you won silverware, the rugby championship. How much are you motivated by, I know you're saying there, but like, how much are you motivated by actually getting silverware again though? Like, do you judge yourself on that, or do you judge yourself on actually, I brought this player through, he got international recognition, like, we did this and we achieved this, we went to France, let's say, in Europe, and we got a victory there. Like, how do you balance that, Cheik?
No, silverware. Like, that's what they're here for, that's what the fans want. And yet you have other wins along the way with all of those things, mate. I'm not going to say, well, if you don't win the trophy, you're a loser. No, I think as you've got to have it layered the correct fashion. I think you've got to understand what your goals are inside of the team, right? And then you'll achieve some, you may not achieve others. When you achieve more of your goals inside of the team, then the silverware comes. And so that's where you can double celebrate, and that's how you judge yourself, because realistically, mate, I'm not going to say these are accurate figures, I'll be guessing, right? It's only the top 5% who are ever winning anything. Think about all the coaches, players, etc., who have coached in the Prem or played in the Prem over the last 10 years. I'd say 5% of those people have won trophies. If you think about how many teams have won the comp over the different times, I don't know if there'd be a mathematician somewhere working that out, stats man.
Comment below.
It could be, somewhere between 5 and 95%. Just I don't want to be wrong now, right? But I reckon it'd be 5% of the people who win, because it's not easy. It's not easy, and I think you win. Whether it's Celtic League, which we won back then, Europe, Super Rugby, Rugby Championship, whatever it might be, that it's got to be the culmination of achieving lots of goals, but it is the end marker, right? So I can see different wins on the way, but for me, that's the end marker.
Well, that's why we all play, isn't it? Like, that's what motivates us. especially when you're in the latter stage of your career, because those windows are getting smaller and smaller to do it.
Man, I'll tell you, there's a moment as a coach, and I never thought about this. I never even thought about coaching, like literally. I just thought I was getting a holiday when I first started coaching. Go to Italy, coach a team there. Yeah, I'm going to go live in Venice. That'd be great. Thank you very much. But what I've realised, I've been lucky enough to win a few trophies along the way, is there's this sort of moment, especially in the teams I've been in, because they've been more turnaround, where just after it finishes, after it happens, that you see people with unbridled joy because they've done something they actually didn't think they could do. And there's that sort of 30 seconds where they're jumping around, they look like idiots, they're jumping around, jumping up and down the same spot, carrying on, looking for someone to hug. But it's just genuinely, I can't believe I did it, that little buzz that lasts for 30 seconds. Then you start connecting with the others and you realise, okay, that's it, and we're all cheering. And that is like such a beautiful thing, because it doesn't happen very often these days. People even find out nowadays, I'm having a boy, I'm having a girl. You know what I mean? The surprise of having that. We don't get that surprise of joy that often anymore. And for a stadium full of people, when there's 80,000 or 70,000 people, they're all on your team, and that happens, it's so powerful. It's so electric, I think that's something that's really addictive inside of the game, just to try and strive to get that little moment post the final victory, because it's a great feeling.
That bit where you've almost brought a team to achieve something and made players believe and go on to be more capable than they ever knew or thought they could be. Is that the sweet spot for you as a coach? Is that the moment you go, that's why I do it?
Yeah. No, I didn't know that beforehand, I'll be honest. But once I've experienced it a few times, I go, yeah, that's it. And even it could be sometimes on different days, like especially when you get into World Cups and stuff like that, where every game's like a bloody final at some stage. Like you see that, you can see it at different times. Then when you eventually get the chance to lift a trophy at the end of a tournament, if you've been able to do it, that for me, that's it. Because what it means, mate, is you've achieved a lot of the goals you set out along the way. Thus, winning's become the consequence.
I think that's a great way to finish. Cheik, thank you very much for joining us, mate. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, mates. Appreciate it.
Awesome.